When I was a kid, the show Camp Lazlo spent a lot of time playing on my living room TV. I was an outdoorsy kid just as much as I was a TV kid, so the theme of summer camp sucked me in immediately. Although I grew up with a lot of space to roam around and explore, I never had the opportunity of spending time in an actual summer camp. However, a lot of Camp Lazlo episodes gave me a glimpse into what that might be like. And because of my fondness for the show, I thought it would be a great topic for me to cover in a video. Hey, what's good guys? I'm the keeper of the tale, and this is all about Camp Lazlo. Camp Lazlo is a show about three friends, Lazlo, Raj, and Clam, who attend a summer camp at a rundown old campgrounds. The show started as just one of multiple ideas written down in a notebook by creator Joe Murray. You see, before Camp Lazlo, Murray created a Nickelodeon show called Rocko's Modern Life. That show followed the everyday life of a wallaby named Rocko, who was just trying to get by in his little city called O-Town. The show was successful, with 4 seasons spanning from 1993 to 1996. Sometime after the show's end, an old friend / executive for Cartoon Network, Linda Saminsky, reached out to Murray to see if he had show ideas for the network. Murray was hesitant to share, but decided to tell her about an idea he originally had for a children's book. This idea revolved around summer camp and getting back to nature. His working title for it was originally 3 Beans, before changing it to Camp Lazlo. I'm kinda glad that changed. The show got approved by Cartoon Network, approval got revoked, possibly due to disbelief in the show, but later reapproved. What an emotional roller coaster that must have been for Murray. But in 2004, after the second approval, production for the show began. So the show takes place at a rundown, poorly managed summer camp called Camp Kidney. Here, the theme for the camp is beans. The campers are bean scouts, the cabins are types of beans, they stack beans, you get it. So Camp Kidney was originally a strict, no-nonsense place run by Scoutmaster Loompas, aka the Iron Moose. On the first day of the new summer camp season, a camper by the name of Lazlo arrives in a banana-shaped fruit truck, dancing in a grass skirt and a fruit hat. He joins 2 other scouts, Raj and Clam, and they become cabin mates. And as I mentioned earlier, all cabins are named after beans, so when the trio gets placed in an old, decrepit cabin with no name, they decide to name it Jelly Cabin. Because jelly beans. You get it? Jelly beans. Most of the other cabins are actual beans, but some are more unique. I'll go through them. We've got Jelly Cabin, Pinto Cabin, Fava, Soy, Baked, Honey, Peanut, Lima, Green, Jumping, Garbanzo, and Cocoa. At camp, the trio gets into a bunch of fun, taking everyday camp activities and cranking the dial of creativity to 10. So let's take a minute to appreciate the depth of these characters. Our main character, Lazlo, is a spider monkey who was originally born in Sao Paulo, Brazil. His parents moved to America to start a fruit delivery company called Fruit Quicka, and that's where Lazlo learns English. Lazlo's personality can be described as very flamboyant and adventurous. He's the type of guy that can talk you into doing the dumbest things and you'll still have fun doing it. Because of how run down and poor Camp Kidney is, Lazlo is always having to use creativity and imagination to make the best out of what he has. Very resourceful. Lazlo is voiced by the very talented Carlos Alazraqui. Carlos is also known for voicing Rocko from Rocko's Modern Life, Crocker from The Fairly OddParents, Winslow from Cat Dog, and more than 600 others. He's legit. Next we have Raj. Raj, full name Rajesh, is an Indian elephant and a proud member of the Jelly Cabin. You could describe him as a timid, cautious individual who goes along with a lot until it becomes too much to handle. However, he never lets any of this get in the way of his friendship with Lazlo. Fun fact, Raj speaks in a thick Indian accent. This is because the creator, Murray, wanted Lazlo to have a thick Brazilian accent, but when the execs told him only one character could have an accent, he chose Raj. Raj is voiced by Jeff Bennett, who is also the voice of 2 other characters on the show. Next we have the lovable enigma that is Clam. Clam is a white rhinoceros who doesn't speak much and loves zingy mustard. He's probably the most unique and complex character of the show in terms of skill set. He can play multiple instruments, mimic voices, lift boulders, solve large puzzles in very short times, walk on water, build complex machines. The list is extremely big. He can do all of these amazing things, but you would never know it because of how simple he is on the outside. Just like Lazlo, Clam is also voiced by Carlos Alazraqui. At one point or another, everyone in the show is an antagonist to some degree, but the most frequent of those would be Scoutmaster Lumpus and Edward Platypus.
It's okay, I won't touch it. I lied! Give it back!
Scoutmaster Lumpus, full name Algonquin Casper Lumpus, is a western moose with a bad attitude. He's voiced by the legendary Tom Kenny, the voice of your favorite undersea sponge.
Plankton! Crabs! Plankton! Crabs!
SpongeBob!
So Lumpus is supposed to be the leader, principal, director, and organizer of the camp, but he's lazy, unconcerned,
sluggish, lazy, stupid, and unconcerned.
It's like, who would intentionally hire him? It's almost as if he was never meant to be Scoutmaster at all. Anyways, Lumpus has very little tolerance for fun or creativity at Camp Kidney. So naturally, when Lazlo is involved in something, Lumpus gets frustrated and attempts to stop it. This usually happens when there's something Lumpus wants to do. Whether it be watching a rare comet that's named after him fly past Earth, chopping down a very rare migrating tree, or just getting some sleep for an important event. Lazlo never means to get in Lumpus's way. Most of the time, he's just trying to be a good scout. Next, we have Edward. Edward Platypus, well, he is a platypus. He's also hands down the meanest animal at camp. He could be described as a bully who wants attention and validation. The reason he's an antagonist is purely based on his hate for Lazlo's optimism and free spirit. He comes off as manic in a couple episodes, such as Campers All Pull Pants and The Wig of Why, where he's seen obsessing over relatively unimportant and small things that other campers kind of just brush off. And just like with Lumpus, Lazlo never means to bother Edward, but just by existing, Lazlo seems to set him off. Now, in an attempt to not make this video too long, I'm going to be brief with the more secondary characters. Slinkman the Banana Slug, voiced by Tom Kenny, is a slug with the demeanor to match. He's the assistant scoutmaster and he lets Lumpus walk all over him. He's got a good heart, but no backbone. Cause he's a slug, you get it?
Brother, this guy stinks!
Chip and Skip are a set of twin dung beetles, voiced by actor Steve Little. They are mentally dense and speak in a low, raspy tone. They are always dirty and must stay that way, or they'll go to sleep for 100 years. They are neither good or bad guys, they just go along with life. You can most often see them tagging along with Edward, who's their pinto bean cabin mate. Then we have Samson Clogmire, who's a guinea pig with a neat freak personality. He's voiced by Jeff Bennett and is somewhat a rival to Raj. They mostly fight over things like nasal spray, existence of aliens, hot spring ownership, and the works. He's possibly jealous how good of friends Raj is with Lazlo. He's often seen with Edward, but mostly as a tag-along. They aren't really good friends. Hey, Dave and Ping Pong. Dave and Ping Pong are a bird species called loons. They're twins just like Chip and Skip, and they're both voiced by Doug Lawrence. They are pretty sarcastic and standoffish, but mostly they're in the background with one or two lines here and there. They spend their nights in the fava cabin with Samson. And fun fact about the fava cabin, it's the cleanest in the camp and it has a secret lab underneath Dave's bed. Off to the Squirrel Scouts. Patsy Smiles is a yellow mongoose. She's voiced by Jodie Benson and is the Lazlo of the Squirrel Scouts. She's headstrong, brave, and makes for a great leader. Honestly, she's probably my favorite character in the show. She's often seen flexing some amenity that Camp Kidney doesn't have, or a skill that the Bean Scouts don't possess. But she's not all bad. There's a lot of times where she's actually trying to help the Bean Scouts save the day. She's the daughter of the muscle-bound drill sergeant, Commander Hoo-Ha, the head honcho to Scoutmaster Lumpus. And in walks Nina. Nina Neckerly is a reticulated giraffe with an amazing personality. She's voiced by Jill Talley and has one of the sweetest tones in the show. She kinda acts as the bridge between Squirrel Scouts and Bean Scouts, being able to get along pretty well with both. Her interests are sci-fi, comics, and science. A lot of times, her character can be the voice of reason for the Squirrel Scouts. She's often seen with her cabin mates, Patsy Smiles, and another character named Gretchen. Gretchen is an American alligator with an aggressive, dim-witted personality. She's also voiced by Jill Talley. Way to go, Jill. She's often the most aggressive Squirrel Scout in conflicts with the Bean Scouts, and she's very amped up at times and never really wants to go with the flow, kinda like Clam. That doesn't mean she doesn't have a soft spot though. One episode, it's revealed that she actually has a crush on Edward. She really shows love for her friends and can be really sweet at times too. Jane Doe is a white-tailed deer and a scoutmaster to the Squirrel Scouts. She's voiced by Jodie Benson, and her personality is extremely ditzy but very caring. All she wants to do is be a good role model for her scouts. Many episodes, she's trying to lead in a very non-authoritative way. The scouts can sometimes take her for granted, but will come through for her when necessary. I know I've been making comparisons to the Bean Scouts to give the Squirrel Scouts' personalities a good reference point, but her counterpart, Lumpus, is nothing like her. Bring in everyone's favorite horned owl. Amandine the Owl is a quiet, nerdy soul with a love for actor Rock Buckskin. She's voiced by Jodie Benson and is one of the more docile Squirrel Scouts. Most of her appearances in the show, she's a background character, but when given the time to shine, she's got a very endearing quality about her that I find really hard not to like. She's the Squirrel Scout version of Samson, but in all the good ways. Next is Miss Mucus, voiced by Jill Talley. Mucus is an angry warthog with no remorse for the Bean Scouts. She hates them with a burning passion and shows it on any occasion she gets. She's also the assistant scoutmaster to Jane Doe. She's got a really rough personality and could be described as brutish. Again, the Bean Scout version of her would be Slinkman, but they are nothing alike. This is probably why Acorn Flats is run so well and Camp Kidney is so out of control. And lastly, Chef McMuesli. Chef Heimlich McMuesli is a vegetarian, goat, and chef working in the kitchen at Camp Kidney. He's also voiced by Carlos Alazraqui. His demeanor is that of a hippie and a health nut. He's often seen trying to help the campers through healthy eating and anger management. But he could also use anger management because his temper is pretty short. That's gonna wrap it up for the characters. There are plenty more, but the rest are background characters with very few minor lines throughout the show, or one-off characters with no lines at all. But that's a really good list of characters. Even though it seems that the inspiration for the Squirrel Scouts characters is pulled from the Bean Scouts, all of the characters are very unique and shine all on their own. A lot of characters even get episodes that center around them. For me, some of the best episodes of cartoons in general were the ones where the show changed pace and followed a side character. It adds depth to the show and makes the universe of that show more dynamic. Like, this show has plenty of characters. It wasn't necessary to go into the lives of background characters, but then the writers hit us with the episode Call Me Amandine, where Amandine starts contemplating what beauty is and if she fits that narrative. A topic that every kid has or will most likely go through. She battles the critiques and comments of other people and the beauty standards that were placed upon her. In the end, she decides to just be herself and let her definition of beauty come from her and her alone. And I love that. They could have used Raj for this episode or Gretchen, but they decided to expand and use a true background character. I give them props, because the episode tackled a more serious and sensitive topic in a really direct and interesting way, and the show is better off for doing so. The show also balances the relationship between the Bean Scouts and the Squirrel Scouts very well. Squirrel Scouts serve as both love interest and antagonists for the Bean Scouts, and it stays very interchangeable throughout the series. Because the show's episodes aren't linear, there really wasn't any growth in relationships other than Lumpus and Jane Doe getting married. But the episodes centered around love and crushes were still some of the best of their time. I think it helps to have strong female characters who can both pursue and reject, instead of just being pursued like in other shows. Take Patsy Smiles. She could stand all on her own as a well-rounded and interesting character. The voice acting is great. The details about her really stand out from all others, and her character design is iconic. But when you add her crush on Lazlo, where she's the pursuer, her character really feels alive. I feel like she's what Panini from Chowder could have been. Her character is a lot less surface and a lot more substance. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the visual art of the show. Murray describes the creative direction for the backgrounds on the show as being inspired by children's books and great comic book artists. So the backgrounds were painted using a technique called acrylic gouache. This is a combination of acrylic paint and an opaque watercolor-like paint called gouache. This gives the benefit of being able to easily layer colors, not lose vibrancy, and adding a sort of groundedness that watercolor doesn't have. I believe this style, combined with the art style in general, is what helps the show's backgrounds capture that dense foliage, woodsy feeling that we see in nature. The show is filled with earthy tones and pretty detailed background for what the show is. Now the colors in the backgrounds of the show aren't true to nature, but they're done like that on purpose to elicit a feeling of summer. The design of the characters never loses my attention either, and it's something about the personification of animals that never gets old for me. And again, they capture the feeling of the outdoors in the backgrounds really well. You can tell how much effort was put into making the show feel like camp. You can see it in the detail of the cabin's wood grain, the pine cones on the ground, or the logs used around the campfires. While rewatching the show, I couldn't help but feel relaxed by all of this. Like I said, I was an outdoorsy kid just as much as a TV kid, and I feel very comfortable and at peace outdoors. While watching this show, I got similar feelings to the ones I got while hiking the woods, fishing, or playing in the park with friends as a kid. That by itself is enough for me to appreciate this show and come back and watch it as an adult. So to the team behind Camp Lazlo, your work added to the enjoyment of my childhood. Your show filled an important spot in that era of cartoons that was empty for a long time, and I really can't thank you guys enough. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I know there's information I left out for time's sake, but maybe in a future video, I'll do a part 2 for Camp Lazlo, and I'll cover everything that I missed. Let me know in the comments if there's something particular you want me to cover. And if you made it this far, consider hitting like and subscribing. It would help support the channel, and it would keep you up to date with my videos. See you guys next time.